Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me Lynnda Pollio. And among other things, she's an author and a consciousness doula. And I started asking her about that before I pressed record, and she started launching. I'm like, okay, no, we have to stop so I can press record. So I will ask you again how you came up with that name and the background to that, because I think it's really fascinating.
Okay, like I said, I've always sort of been ahead of the game in my life. I was very much a visionary since I was a child, and I was connected to all kinds of things when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to go into a space where no one else is yet, and I hold that space. And as soon as other people come into that space, then I move on to wherever I'm supposed to go next. And
Mm-hmm.
consciousness was something that I got into decades ago. I had been in advertising, and I ran new business for ad agencies for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I came to Sedona, which was in 1996, after my father died, I heard a voice say, "Go to Sedona." And I ended up coming here, not knowing why I was going or how long. And I stayed for 5 months. And it kind of blew open all of my consciousness and spirituality that I had been embedded in as a child
Mm-hmm.
and kind of pushed aside because I was told I was weird and told I was imagining things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went into my 20s and went to New York City and just did what people expected me to do to a certain
Right,
degree.
right.
But when I got back to New York after that experience, I could not go back to the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I had to immerse myself more into consciousness. And I started studying all different kinds of energy practices and frequency practices. I'm extremely energy adept and frequency adept. And the first thing I did was I started working with consciousness within corporate America. And I worked in conscious business practices, bringing what I call the human technologies of wisdom, intuition, compassion, empathy, and forgiveness into corporate culture.
Mm.
Eventually, I became the world's first chief consciousness officer, working at a global marketing consultancy. And I created that position because I wanted it to exist. And that's same reason that I created Consciousness Doula, is I create the space, and titles and names and words are really holding containers for energies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I created the position as a chief consciousness officer, my thinking was that just like when digital technologies came onto the planet, and there was a bunch of weird people talking about this new energy that was coming, this new technology that was going to change the world, and no one really understood and no one believed, and everyone thought that it was just sort of a flash in the pan. Once it wasn't a flash in the pan, companies had to hire a chief technology officer. So they had to create a whole new position within a company that never existed before,
Mm-hmm.
someone who understood those technologies. And I kind of look at consciousness as the new technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that companies needed to create a chief consciousness officer so that person could bring those human technologies into corporate culture and into
Mm.
employee programs and into consumer programs. So I did that for a number of years. And then once consciousness started becoming a little bit more evolved within corporate America. It's way not there yet, but there are a lot more people now that actually know about it and are
Right.
working on it. So
Yeah.
once that happened, I knew it was time for me to go a little deeper into consciousness. And I went down the rabbit hole a little further. And so whoops, sorry. My idea was to was to create a position that involved the birth of consciousness. So doulas historically are all about birthing babies.
Mm-hmm.
And recently there's been the death doula, and these are people that are very involved in helping people understand what the death process is,
Mm-hmm.
helping them navigate the spiritual, physical, and emotional aspects of death.
Mm-hmm.
And so my idea was to create a position as a consciousness doula, and that is to bring consciousness, to birth consciousness to people. Because for me, consciousness is the foundation of everything. We can't really change the world if we don't change the way that we see the world and we
Mm-hmm.
believe our place in the world is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how consciousness doula got born. And everything I do comes out of that. And I do a lot of different things, but for me, it's all about helping people awaken into their own sense of conscious awareness.
That's beautiful because it's a journey, as you know.
It is definitely a journey, as I know, and it's not an easy journey.
No.
And we all, everyone that's on that journey, there are certain programs, that are going to go through your system when you're having an awakening, and they're
Hmm.
not always easy. And the
Right.
dark night of the soul is a big part of it.
Hmm.
So that's something that I help people navigate. And there are different, breaking patterns that you have to be able to see yourself in a different way and experience life in a different way. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm all about now. And I think I'm fairly well down the rabbit hole and totally committed to this work. I feel like I'm here to be of service, as
Yeah.
many of us. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah.
We've kind of broken away from the mothership and we're
Hmm.
we're little satellites now out there trying to
Yeah.
change things.
I definitely feel that because like for me, um, just tuning into the energies, like there's such a shift in the consciousness, and I'm seeing it within myself because I'm getting like deeper levels of subconscious programs within me that I kind of knew, but they're actually showing up. They're like coming to the surface now, and I'm able to feel them and be present with them in ways that I, even like 6 months ago, I wasn't able to do. So I
Yeah.
know that the light is increasing and that we're
Mhm.
feeling it at different levels. And I don't know, it feels like some sort of imminent shift, and I don't know how to describe it any other way. Are you feeling that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think, most of us that have been on this road for quite a while feel the intensity and the speed of what's happening now. And many people are waking up to their own consciousness, but they're not aware that they're waking up because they don't have the language. I'm very much about languaging things because you can take one concept
Hmm.
and you can language it 5 different ways for 5 different types of people. So,
Hmm.
to help them be able to digest the information and the energy. So many
Hmm.
people are having experiences that they don't understand, that maybe they're a little afraid of, but they don't have the language to communicate what's happening to them.
Hmm.
So it's important that people like us are out there normalizing these
Right.
experiences, because once people feel that they're not alone in the process, then they're more apt to continue the process, and it's easier for them to go through it, because like I said, it can, particularly in the beginning, be isolating and scary.
Right. Right. One of the languages that I'm drawn to is some of the terms in quantum physics with frequency and resonance,
Me too.
because it helps, like, especially let's say for some reason you've had a really close person in your life and all of a sudden they're not there anymore. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
could take that personally, but what it is, it's a shift in frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see it from that perspective and that language, there's nothing personal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps
Mm-hmm.
me when I see something with myself or with somebody I love, and there's this like this confusion or like, don't they love me anymore or something like that. It's like, no, 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 no. There's nothing about love. The love is always there. It's just that your frequency shifted and there's not a resonance anymore. And so there's nothing wrong with that.
No, no.
And that permission to see from that perspective is really helpful.
Well, it's not, like you say, it's not personal. It's very neutral. Energy is neutral.
Mhm.
It's the way that we put our emotions into it. So we're always either in resonance or in dissonance
Yeah.
with something. And it feels right or it doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
And many times we try to push ourselves into a dissonant situation because it's work. We're dealing with some kind of inner trauma that we haven't dealt with. So we want to hold on to something or someone that is not right for us, but we don't know what to do without that person or that thing. So we hold on to it, even though it's in dissonance,
Right.
instead of allowing it to detach in some sort of neutrality and then move into a new space of resonance with something else and allow us to get to move into that unknown. And a big part of this process is moving into the unknown and being comfortable in not knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the longer I've been in this on this journey, the less I think I know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you think you are learning, but all you're doing is you're opening up aspects, way bigger aspects than you ever expected. So there's bigger spaces of not knowing. And
Right.
all we really have are our belief systems based on our own experience and
Mm-hmm.
by other people resonating with us. So we take that as truth, but it's just a belief. And we really, the ultimate truth is death.
Right.
We'll know at the moment of death what we believed, at least that part of it.
Right.
But until then, we're doing our best to figure out our place in the world here.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. And it's a like the perk of where we are in consciousness right now is that, I mean, as a little girl, I didn't have anyone to talk to.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I desperately wanted to understand why I saw my spiritual team or who they were and why I astral traveled and why I saw my grandfather sitting on my bed after he died. Like I didn't have anyone to talk to about that, so I shut myself down.
Yeah, that happens.
But that's normal,
Hmm.
right? And so to be able to let that happen. I mean, I just had a podcast before I jumped on with you. We did light language for 10 minutes. If you had told me that like a year and a half ago, I would have been like, what? What is
I,
that? But
I know light language is coming in fast and furious. I've been doing it for about 10 years. I don't do it in public generally, but
mhm,
it's been coming in as just frequency codes. And
yeah.
so many people now are getting these transmissions.
Hmm.
Um, Mine personally don't translate to English, um, but I do feel that they're bringing in different codes and
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
frequencies.
Yeah.
So, I go pretty much down the rabbit hole, and even that kind of freaks me out. I mean, it took me a long time to admit to people that I was doing that, because as you continue on this journey, you will start opening up to aspects of that even you have a hard time understanding and
Yeah.
grasping. It takes a while for it to kind of anchor into you. And
Oh
I think
yeah.
light
Like
for
when
those.
I hear myself talk, I have no idea what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, a word will come out. Like I in the podcast I just did, I heard "sheshe," which is thank you in Chinese.
Oh,
And so I'm like, okay, that's a word I know. But the rest of it was like the way my mouth was forming words is different than I normally speak because it's language
mm-hmm.
that I don't normally speak. So it's really interesting to be present to it and allow it to flow through. And it's just another level of remembering who I am.
Yep. And you
And
don't have to know, and you don't have to know what it is. And that's something that, when it comes to light language, and I do light language art as well,
oh,
and
cool.
not really needing to know what's happening, not needing to know whether it's real or not real, but just allowing the flow naturally to come through you.
Hmm.
I think that also speeds things up when we let go of our handlebars. Um,
Yeah.
go a lot faster. And our handlebars are our belief systems and our previous cultural conditionings.
Hmm. And depending on what age group you're in, there's a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they say that you spend the second half of your life unlearning what you learned the first half of your life.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I know for a fact that because I knew this when I was 10. My 10-year-old was magical. She was
Uh-huh.
like, oh yeah, I'm not having kids because I don't want to bring the ancestral stuff forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm it. I'm like it. Nobody's coming, like nothing is coming after me that's ancestral on both sides of the
Right.
family. I'm it. And how would I have that awareness like as a 10-year-old, except that it was already like it was just this knowing.
Yep.
And and had I'm not going to regret, but like because I know my intuition was with me the entire time. Whether or not I chose to listen to it is secondary to that. But like having that level of connection and intentionally shutting it down so I could survive Fairfield County, Connecticut in the 1980s,
Hmm.
it was a thing. And the fact that I never let go of it, even though I thought I shut it down, is a testament to how profound my subconscious and my unconscious knew what I was supposed to do, because I could have easily just shut down,
Right.
but I couldn't. Like there's something in me that was like, nope, you are not. You can go to sleep for a while, you can numb yourself out for a while, but you are not shutting down, honey. Nice try.
Well, I think if you shut down, you probably get sick.
Yeah.
I think that's a big that and a lot of, a lot of us are wounded healers for that reason, because
Mm.
we did kind of shut down for periods of time,
Yeah.
and we were sensitive children who were always like, we're kind of like mockingbirds in that got dropped in some strange nest, and
Hmm.
then we had to kind of navigate our way out of it. So a lot of us have weird health conditions that
Hmm.
probably come from suppressing our true identity for so long.
Yeah.
And the more you can go into that identity and go start searching through the energetic rubble in there, the more you can help release some of those patterns that are, causing health issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know ultimately everything that isn't aligned is a dis-ease where you're just not
Hmm.
allowing that energy to expand into a healthy space. I'll give an example. I'm trying to think of one that's really good. So, okay, so a few years ago, I was moving stuff, and the person I was with suggested I drive a U-Haul. Well, I've never driven anything that big before, so I was so nervous that I was singing in public, which is a telltale sign that I'm like freaked out because I do not typically sing in public. And I'm just like, I'm that nervous because it's a big truck. And it's not a big thing, but for me at the time it was. And when we got to the storage unit, I opened the door and I fell out onto my coccyx and
Ooh,
broke it
oh
before we
my
started
God.
moving.
Wow.
Why did I do that? I mean, it's been fixed since then, but like I did it because my root chakra was so out of alignment. I was in pure fear for no reason that I could identify other than the fact that I don't like moving and it was something big that I was driving. Maybe I rode a Mastodon at some point. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but the message was this is dis-ease. And my body was in so much misalignment from that for probably about a week until I really sat with the root cause of it. Like
Mm.
what was that fear? Because that was like an indescribable level of fear that didn't make any sense. So for me to be present to that and really feel it, then it got better. But it wasn't going to
Yep.
get better until I sat with it.
Well, that's how all trauma works. You have to sit in the trauma, and it's the hardest thing to do
Yeah.
because most people spend their lives s- avoiding it, but not only are they avoiding their conscious trauma, but they have all this, we all have all this unconscious trauma, and we have ancestral trauma that we won't be able to get in contact with. We won't be able to heal in the time we have here, but we can at least see it and acknowledge it and allow it to coexist with us,
Hmm.
so that there isn't that dissonance with it, that
Right.
that we accept that it's part of our journey and it
Hmm.
belongs maybe to ancestors or to past lives or to
Right.
childhood aspects that we're not going to get in touch with in this life. We don't have to heal everything that we are carrying,
Hmm.
but it helps that when you're having an emotional reaction to something or there's something being hidden from you, you want to allow yourself to feel it so that you can release it and
Hmm.
see it and it stops having the power over you
Right.
that it has over you.
Right. Right. Because like the fear and excitement have the same energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So however you tune into it, I had an incident a couple of months ago where I was in a place where we were losing power, and for some reason I jumped up at 2 o'clock in the morning to boil eggs because I knew I wasn't gonna like the completely irrational thing. And I felt into the anxiety of it. And I was laughing at myself because I'm like, this is so interesting that I'm feeling this. So then I started dancing. I'm like, if I'm up and I have this energy, I'm gonna just change it over to enjoying myself. And then I started singing a Stevie Wonder song. And like
That's
by the time
great.
the eggs were done, I was dancing and I was all happy. And I was like, how hard was it for me to have the awareness to switch the energy? And then we didn't lose power, but I had a lot of boiled eggs. So it was it was all, but it was like, what is when you have that awareness, then being able to be present to it really shifts the effect of it on your body.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And that's one of the things that we're really beginning to learn is just how our emotional and energetic selves affect our physical body.
Mhm.
And that's new. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
mystics have known that for a long time, but it's beginning to wash through mass consciousness now, which is what all this is supposed to do, is begin to travel through mass consciousness. And this year is going to be a big year for that. People will be waking up. They will be feeling and seeing things that they haven't felt and seen before. They will be seeking outside influences that they didn't expect to ever seek before. Um, and that's a good thing. The
yeah,
more people that we have that are willing to move into their heart, I'm a very big believer in heart-based everything.
me too.
And more people that are moving into their heart, the easier it will be for us in the future, because we're
Mhm.
obviously having a very difficult time on the planet being in our hearts right now.
Right. But it's for me, like empath.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I have discovered over this past year is that tendency to care for others to the exclusion of self, I can't do anymore.
Yeah.
Like, just can't. So what I do is I activate my Merkaba,
Mm-hmm.
and then I send out a toroidal field of unconditional love. And then if I go to a place like, I'll say Walmart, which I did a couple weeks ago, right after I had this ice storm, and where everybody was shut down for a week. Um, what I didn't do was reactivate it because I got so disoriented. I didn't know where in the store I was because I was feeling all of the energy. So it's my responsibility because nobody else is responsible because I know better, right?
Right.
So it's my responsibility if I know I'm going in a situation like that to just be more mindful.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, oh, I forgot that I needed to, like, this is going to be a low frequency area because people are in that state of, oh, we finally get to get food. Oh my gosh, this is stressful, blah, 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 blah. Finally out of the ice storm. We can finally get our cars out of our driveways. Um, that frequency of energies, I can just reactivate my Merkaba. I can call on Archangel Michael. I can do whatever I need to make sure that I'm still not taking on the energy. And that's all.
That's right. I mean, and I think I have the same experience in Walmart. I have to really defend myself before I go in there. And it's not just the consciousness of the people that are in there and the fear and the anger that is in a lot of mass consciousness. It's
Right.
also the lights in there, the
Mm-hmm.
fluorescent lights, and just the energy of all the products in there. And it's difficult. And if you're sensitive, I mean, a lot of people are not that sensitive, so they're not affected, or at least they don't
Right.
feel that they're being affected. But if you are sensitive, you do have a responsibility to take better care of your energy
Yeah.
and your body.
Yeah. And and there's, it's just, I had a client a few months ago whose dog had cancer right here.
Mm.
And without diving into too many details, the type of work he did required him to energetically clear himself every day, and
Mm,
he didn't. So the poor animal took on the energy
wow.
and developed cancer and ended up dying from it because like it was cumulative. And I'm not Obi-Wan. I
Right.
can do lots of things. Well, I can facilitate lots of things, but like it's easier if I do it like as a maintenance thing
Yeah.
as
Before the
opposed to
tumor.
gosh. So, but it's really interesting because like bringing awareness into that, like our energy is affecting our pets, it's affecting people we communicate with. Like, are you seeing more people beginning to wake up to that? Are you helping people with that? How is that showing up?
Definitely. Like I said, I've been in the world of consciousness for decades now. And when I first began and was having my own experiences and my own reawakening from my childhood, I had to explain to people what consciousness was. They didn't know the word.
Yeah,
And when I was trying to become a chief consciousness officer, I would go to advertising agencies and companies and they would say, well, can't you call it like a chief culture officer or chief? And I said, no, if you can't say the word, you can't be it.
right.
So words are these vehicles.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing way more people know what consciousness is, understand frequency. And in my big thing now is frequency. And
Mhm.
now when I moved out of consciousness and really started focusing more on frequency, there weren't that many people that were talking about frequency, and I had to do a lot of explaining, but now
Yeah.
way more people. And it's happening, the speed of this is happening very fast. I mean, the first 20 years, it was crickets.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
like, I was definitely the freak in the room.
Yeah,
But now I'm not the freak in the room. I mean, I wouldn't be having this conversation 20 years ago.
right.
I had to be careful who
Mhm.
I talked to
Mhm.
without, particularly when I was in business,
Right,
that they didn't think I was some nut job.
right.
So now I'm finding more and more people are open to this. And I work in an art gallery a couple days a week just to get an idea. It's a spiritual art gallery. It's a beautiful gallery, and it
Beautiful.
helps me connect into mass consciousness as the
Mhm.
people walk in there. And I'm really seeing so many people of all different ages that are beginning to wake up and ask questions and are so grateful. And I do, I'm sort of a covert consciousness doula. Most of my work is I don't even tell people what's happening. I'm just there to offer guidance and support as people pass through my life.
Mm.
Because a lot of times that's the best way to help someone is when it's not a face-to-face thing, but it's more something that is about just guiding them and helping them at a point in time where they are looking for guidance and support and information about something.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I mean, I think in the next 2 years, there'll be an enormous groundswell for this as people begin to realize that the world as it is not working. And also, there's so much energy coming in, cosmic energy, energy from the sun, solar flares, you know, whatever your belief system is about all of that energy coming in, it is very intense.
Yeah.
The astrology of today is very intense and very shifting and moving very fast. So, yeah, I mean, I'm more optimistic than ever before, even though if you look at the world as it is right now, there's no reason to be optimistic.
Right.
But, pain is a beautiful tenderizer and it
Mhm.
opens people to the unknown in ways that they wouldn't consider unless they were being shaken in some way. And we're being shaken now on multiple levels.
Yes,
So
we are.
I'm actually really optimistic, and yeah, and I help people in lots of different ways. I mean, my book is a frequency book, and it helps people who it's called Trusting the Currents, and it's all about trusting the currents in life wherever they're taking you. So that helps, and my work with wisdom keeping helps, and I'm putting together a whole new website about that,
Beautiful.
and a seminar workshop all about the awakening process. And I'm
Mhm.
working with many people. I mean, this is not a time of the solo spiritual person out
Mhm.
there, doing this. This is really about us putting our pieces of the puzzle together, and we all have
Yeah.
something to say, and we all have our place in this. And
Mhm.
I may communicate in one way that resonates with some people, but there's a lot of people around me that are saying the same thing in different ways,
Hmm.
but they'll be resonating with with different people.
Right.
So I'm very much about building building community around that. And as I talked before, I call it collaborative interdependence,
I love
where
that.
we all are ourselves, but we're all a part of something bigger. And the spiritual movement, there's a lot going on in it right now because there's a
Hmm.
lot of people coming into it that are waking up themselves and don't really haven't gone through the rooting process of the
Hmm.
dark night of the soul and a lot of the deep processes, and that will come
Hmm.
because very few people get through the spiritual awakening without some sense of a dark night of the soul, whether it's
Yeah.
2 weeks or 2 years or 20 years, and no one really knows why people have
Right.
longer ones. Some people have shorter ones, but it is a process that takes that first illumination which is very kind of glamorous, and you start seeing spirituality, and you get hooked into all these wonderful beautiful new things and
Hmm.
crystals and all these fun things, and it grounds it into some real
Hmm.
meaningful work on the planet. So
Right.
and I'm really connected to a lot of people around the world that are doing that, and I want to support everyone who is stepping up and are part of this journey and process together.
Yeah, I feel that too. It's just this beautiful, like, how do we support each other? Um, I love collaboration. It's like my favorite way of being, and
Yeah, me too.
I haven't had it since 2006, and my soul longs to do it again because there's something so magical about creating something bigger than yourself
Hmm.
with bringing everybody else's skills to the table and just making that big umbrella of magic that happens. And I mean, I love my alone time. Boy, do I I love my alone time. And there's something so incredibly magical about being able to create with others that just it's just this, it's a sense of purpose is greater than self.
Yeah, and that's what we're all that's one of the reasons why we're all doing this. And but there is a part of the process of awakening. I mean, it's languaging is so difficult. For a long time, the biggest problem we have is languaging, because a lot of the words we use doesn't really explain the experience, but it's the closest we can get.
Hmm.
And a lot of the experience of awakening is you will go through a time of solitude. And if for some reason, and I don't know why, it is an inherent and important part of the process. You will
Hmm.
feel separate from everyone. You will feel a sense of alone that you have never felt before.
Hmm.
And that is that's an important part of it. And eventually you will come out of that, and you will begin to establish relationships with people that are of your frequency at that point in time, and that you will start supporting each other, and you'll have someone to talk to. It may be
Hmm.
one person. And
Hmm.
someone that I know had reached out to me that I've known my whole life, but I haven't really been in touch very much. And he was having an awakening, and he called me because he knows that I've been doing this for a long time, and he didn't have anyone to talk to. His wife didn't understand what he was talking about. He didn't understand what he was experiencing, and he
Hmm.
just needed someone to talk to about it and not feel like he was crazy.
Right.
And I said to him, I said, you're call me anytime, but I said, I guarantee you have someone around you, at least one person who is having the same experience, but neither of you are talking about it. I said,
Hmm.
so go out there and start throwing out bait words like energy and resonance and
Hmm.
consciousness, and see who bites onto them. And
Yeah.
that is the person that you can start having a communion with, so that you
Hmm.
feel that you are part of something, because a big part of this process is you feel alone.
Right.
And once you go through that, and you will always, as you said, you need those times alone, because
Hmm.
our inner universe is as expansive as our outer universe, but we're
Hmm.
not taught to go inside. We're
Right.
actually taught not to go inside. We're taught to fear the unknown. But once you are willing to go in there and you start exploring in there, all kinds of magical, mystical experiences happen
Yeah.
to you. and you open yourself up to things you never would have thought before.
Mhm.
But to get there, you have to be alone. You have to turn off your phone. You have to sit in meditation or in the dark or with yourself, and you have to allow yourself to feel the discomfort of going into a space that you've never been before. And then once you're in that space, things will start to happen.
Yeah.
But so the alone part is the big part of it. Then you can pull yourself out, and then you find other people that have had these experiences, and you can start creating whatever you want to create with whoever is resonating around you. And you'll have little pockets of people. I always looked at us as being these kind of this web, and we're little modules.
Mhm.
And these modules are connected to other modules. So all over the
Yeah.
world, there may be a module across the world that I have nothing in common with, but we are connected to each other through other modules of consciousness.
No, I
And
definitely feel that. I definitely
exciting.
feel that. I mean, I have the gift, kind of giddy about this. I get to talk to people
Yeah,
regularly about this,
that's
and it
fun.
it just makes me feel so blessed to know how many people want to talk about consciousness. Like I am amazed when I signed up on Podmatch, I was like, okay, well maybe I'll get like one or two people. I'm busy like 4 or 5 days a week with podcasts because so many people want to share their wisdom about what's going on and how to help greater consciousness. And so I get to have these amazing conversations.
Yeah, well, and it's important, talking about it and sharing it with other people is important because it normalizes it.
Hmm.
It's very important that this becomes normalized because it is normal. It
Yeah.
just hasn't been normal in our past. And when I started doing podcasts, and I had done one podcast, and the woman said, "Oh, you're really good at this." And I literally was nauseous. I was so scared.
Oh.
I was a very shy child. I was not really someone that wanted to communicate in that way, even though I've always been a fairly good communicator. But I decided to start doing podcasts because I wanted to overcome that fear.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be able to bring out the things that I was experiencing to see who else was having these experiences.
Hmm.
So, I've done a bunch of them now over the past couple of years since I've been doing that. And the people I've met and the experiences I've shared have really helped me in everything else that I do in my life. And
Hmm.
a big part of that is the ability to share, the
Hmm.
ability to hear other people's experiences, the ability for me to share my experiences, and whether they're similar or different, it doesn't matter because
Right.
we're all kind trying to be this being on the planet that we were taught we were one thing, and then all of a sudden we wake up and we realize we are not anything that we were told we are.
Right.
And I call it your inner resonance signature. It's that one frequency that is you alone. And
Hmm.
that gets covered up very early in life. And it's about unpeeling the onion of social conditioning so you can finally feel that inner
Hmm.
resonance signature. And once
Hmm.
you're able to feel it, you won't be able to stay there because our culture will always pull us out, but you can get back to it again.
Yeah.
And you can begin to share it in a more meaningful way with others.
Hmm. I definitely feel that one of the gifts that I've been given is a very slow awakening.
Hmm.
Um, so like when my subconscious loves to show up between 1 and 4, which is
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
and the coolest thing I've noticed in the past couple months is that I'll have some subconscious thing come up. And it's something I just haven't seen before, but it's really deep and it's ready to come up. And my ability to have self-compassion and to be present with it is so much easier than it used to be. Like it used to be like weeks of me ignoring the thing and like distracting myself with all the things and like not wanting to see it and having this internal battle. And now it's just like, oh no, I'm just ready for the next thing. And it just shows up. I'm just present to it. I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool that I had this. This is so amazing. And just love that into being. And then I fall back asleep.
Well, you're being patient with your humanity.
Yeah.
We have become impatient with our own humanity, and we have been divorced from our divinity. And
Yeah.
we are now beginning to merge these two back together again. But being patient with our humanity, we're all, you know, imperfect beings struggling through life. We're all afraid. We're all having problems. Just because we become more conscious of our problems doesn't mean they go away. It just means
Right.
we're able to function with them easier, and we're able
Hmm.
to be more vulnerable with each other, because
Right.
when when we feel vulnerable, it really feels like weakness. But when we share that vulnerability with others, it begins to build strength.
Yeah.
And the more people that are willing to be vulnerable with each other, the more strength that begins to develop. And the more we can build that vulnerability into our ecosystems, and it becomes a powerful force of change.
Yeah. Yeah. Vulnerability is it's really interesting because I always thought I was vulnerable until I actually became vulnerable. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm actually like just opening up because I don't know how to be any other way in terms of like I don't know how to put on masks anymore, which is amazing. I was gifted with living in Mount Shasta region for 3 years,
Oh,
so like
wonderful.
I don't have any masks anymore
Hmm.
because it kind of peels them away. Whether or not you want them to, they do. And so I don't know how to relate with anyone if I'm not in my heart. Like it doesn't feel right anymore.
Well, the heart's a power place. I mean, but the mind is always telling us that it's not safe.
Right.
So most people are afraid of going into their heart. First of all of our hearts have been broken in some way through
Mhm.
childhood or through love affairs, or just by being feeling betrayed by life in some way. So our
Mhm.
hearts feel is where we store our vulnerability, but it's really our power center. So
Mhm.
once we can ignore the little monkey mind telling us it's not safe, and we begin to trust it,
Yeah.
the field, our heart, I mean, if you know heart math, our
Mhm.
heart energy is way more a bigger field than our
Mhm.
mind is.
Right.
And it controls a lot of our emotions and reactions and visions for things. But people perceive the heart as the weakest place we have, and it's actually our power place.
Mhm.
But that's something that's beginning to flip as well. And again,
Yeah.
it's as long as like-minded, heart-centered people come together and they learn to deal with conflict. I mean, conflict happens even in the best of us,
Mhm.
and dissidence happens even in the best relationships.
Mhm.
So how you navigate those conflicts really determines the outcome of how you go forward together. And we
Right.
look at the world around us and look at the dissidents out there and look at the conflict right now and realize that no one is in their heart,
Right.
because they're all in their heads. But if people would move in the heart and they would see the similarities that they're carrying, people are way more similar than they are different, but they
Mhm.
choose to focus on the one thing they're different instead of focusing on the 50 things that makes them the
Right.
same.
Right. It's
It,
so
it's
fascinating.
it's a fascinating study in human nature.
Right. It's like I so my big thing was like I didn't get separation when I was little.
Hmm.
And I mean like with animals, with land, with everything. I didn't see why it was separate from me. And that's been like the whole driving force of my beingness is like to understand why it was created because none of it makes sense.
Right.
Like why my car talks to me because she's
Hmm.
consciousness. So like why do I think she's separate from me? She's not.
Right.
She's just in a different form. She's a different level of frequencies that are placed in a three-dimensional construct, but I am too. So
Hmm.
the separation thing is such an illusion. And the longer I dive into it, the more I realize that's like the biggest piece for me of the illusion.
Yeah, well, it is. And that's the hardest, and that's one of the hardest things that people have accepting is the loss of identity, because if we're part of everything, then maybe I'm nothing. So they're afraid of being nothing instead of seeing that because they're part of everything, they have access to so much more. But it's also, it's a odd concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes against everything that we're taught in our schools and our religions and in government and in corporations. And, we're basically little computer programs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been programmed to believe things.
Right.
and what we believe is what the truth is. And truth is a movable object, depending
Hmm.
on who is believing what. I mean, I had truths 20 years ago that are that I don't have anymore. I have
Right.
different truths. I mean, I always look at consciousness as sort of like Russian dolls. Like you're in a Russian doll and you think that's all there is, and all of a sudden you have an expansion and you break through that Russian doll and you're like, oh, I didn't see that before. Oh, this is different. Oh, and there's a period of adjustment to that, and
Hmm.
then that's what you believe. Then that
Right.
becomes your belief system until the next Russian doll
Right.
you blow open to, and then you so and I think life is just a series of Russian dolls, and we probably don't ever get to the end of them. But if we are willing to go into that inner universe and into our vulnerability and into our heart and into the energy of other people and the planet and animals and cars and whatever, we will become something that we never expected to become. And I think
Hmm.
maybe that's what's all this is all about, is we are all becoming something unexpected.
Hmm.
And that is both powerful and scary.
Hmm.
And we don't really know where it's ending. And we, as human beings, we want to know where we're going. And when you awaken in consciousness, you basically climb in the front seat and take control of the wheel instead of being in the back seat screaming, because one
Hmm.
one way or another you're going.
Right.
But at least when you take responsibility and it's not an external fault of anyone's
Hmm.
as to where your life is, even though you'll have experiences. You may have had a terrible childhood, you may have had your heart broken. All these terrible things happen to us,
Hmm.
and we have to accept them and acclimate ourselves into them and take them and then become more powerful because
Hmm.
of them. And then
Hmm.
once we do that, then we can do something in the world that is unexpected. And I'm really excited about all this work that we're moving into. And I don't think it's going to be easy. And I think we're going to have fits and starts. But as more people come online, it's going to be exciting time to be alive
I agree.
in more ways than one.
I agree. I'm, I am, I've seen visions of what's going to happen, and
No, nice.
there's like a giddy excitement to it. I mean, there's going to be bumps, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
but creating the new is exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and creating the new way of being. Um, I love that I can't write a bio anymore because it seems so silly to me. It's like, how do I define what I am when I don't know what that is? I mean, I have aspects that I can see. I know characters I played in different
Mm-hmm.
roles, but the beingness is so much greater than the parts that it doesn't make sense anymore. I've tried, but it's like I'm just describing things about me. I'm not actually describing me.
Well,
And
they're
that's a
aspects.
right, they're
I mean,
aspects.
they're
They're different.
aspects, they're experiences, there's
Hmm.
skills, there's talents, there's gifts you have.
Right,
So that all, I mean, in culture, we define each other in very simple ways,
right,
but we're all way more complex than the way we explain ourselves, but we are constantly being squashed down so that we can understand each other in sound bites.
right,
So once we realize that we are more, um, and we have to put some containers on it, because as you well know, you can go down that consciousness rabbit hole and not come out,
right,
because we don't know what the truth is.
right,
And when I go into that place, consciousness is something that our human mind really can never understand.
right.
So we have to create, I call them reality nests. Like we have, like
Mm,
the universe for me is a reality nest. It's a reality nest created in consciousness to manifest things. And one of the things that manifests are human beings. So, and human beings need to create kind of reality-ness in their own world so that they can move through life as a human physical being.
hmm.
But it doesn't mean that's all they are. It's just an
Right,
aspect that they are presenting to the world. And you can pull in, once you create that little vehicle, you can pull in I can pull in all the experiences that I've had when I was in advertising, doing new business, everything I
Mhm.
learned, all those skills. I can pull in the gifts of my childhood spirituality and communicating with insects and all the crazy things I did back then. And
Mhm.
I can pull in the attributes and characteristics that I have developed now that I'm moving forward. And I don't have to hold them all the time
Right.
because different people are interested in different parts of me,
Mhm.
but they're all there. And once I resonate with someone, I know through languaging what to show them.
Mhm.
And that's what we all can learn to do. And, I
Yeah.
will show a part of me to you, but I could go into Walmart and I'll show something different to the cashier there,
Right.
something that makes her more comfortable or him more comfortable.
Mhm. Mhm. Mm. Thank you so much.
It's a wild world we're living in.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful to know you're on the planet with me.
Oh, thank you. You too. I'm like so happy that, I was so alone for so long, for so many
Yeah.
years when I was young, and I
Mhm.
know you felt the same way.
Mhm.
When I was very young, I was having experiences, and I was told by my parents they were imagination. I was told by teachers, not to talk about things like that, and then I eventually just squashed them. And even when I woke up, reawoken years ago, people didn't want to hear.
Right.
And now it's great that I can go as far as I want to go, and there's
Mhm.
someone there who's been there too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it doesn't matter. We don't know what's true. This could
Right.
all be in our imagination. We don't know.
Right.
But the experience, when you have an awakening experience, when you have a mystical experience, the truth of it is so powerful. You're absolutely sure
Mhm.
that this is happening. Now, the
Right.
longer you get away from it, the more it begins to become vague and you start to question yourself. But the
Mhm.
moment of it is such a powerful experience. And I think more and more people will be having that. And I'm really happy that you're here too, and you're sharing this with so many different people and bringing all these people into the light
Thank you.
so that more individuals can see, oh, that's me. That's
Mhm.
me. Maybe I'm me to someone. Maybe you're me to someone else, and
Right.
all of your guests are me to someone.
Mhm.
And that's what's important, that we start seeing the me's out there.
That's why I was guided to do this.
Beautiful, beautiful thing.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask one final question, and that is, how can people find you?
Um, oh, it's actually a good question because I'm sort of going through a really big transformation myself right now. I had taken care of my mother for several years, and then right after
Okay.
that, I moved to Sedona from New York City, and I moved here just as the pandemic was getting going.
Oh, wow.
So I went through this wild experience of post caregiving and pandemic, and it transformed a lot of the work that I want to do in the world.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
have, but I have a couple websites. I have
Okay.
my book. I have Trusting the Currents, which was this book that was channeled to me by an old Southern African American woman,
Awesome.
and it's won 13 literary awards, and it was a number
Wow.
one bestseller in inspirational fiction. And I have a website, Linda Pollio. It's lindapollio.com for that, but I'm probably going to be dissembling that in the next few months. I'm creating a site called wisdomkeeping.com, which will be a portal, and not just a portal for me and the things I do, but I will have other people there as well. And it will all be about helping people that are having these experiences find the right person
Mhm.
and the right thing, whether it's a book. I'll be having courses and workshops. So you can go to wisdomkeeping.com. It's a very splash pagey thing right now, but you can put your email in there. And when I finally launch, I'll be happy to contact you. I have another website called thewishingbowl.com, which is a meditation product that I created, and I've been doing light language art, but um, I've been bringing in my social media. I'm kind of pulling away from it. I got off of Facebook. I got off of Twitter. I'm still on Instagram as Lynnda Pollio, and I'm on LinkedIn, but I will eventually be pulling off of social media and pulling into this portal that I'm creating. And just to let people find me. And I looked at myself as a little mushroom head sticking up, and whoever comes in will come through me and go into the mycelium of consciousness with all different kinds of things in there, and all different kinds of people doing all beautiful kinds of work. So I'm in the process of doing that myself. So I'm like everyone else, I'm becoming something unexpected.
Mhm.
And I am, no, so that's it. But but if you Google me, you can find me because I'm
Awesome.
out there in the world.
Thank you so, so much for your time, for
Thank
your
you, Sophia.
wisdom, and for
Uh,
your beingness.
you're very sweet. Thank you.
You're
Grateful.
welcome.